What if there was somebody that told you that yes, Nick, Army would in fact cover? They did. What if there was somebody that told you that Ed Orgeron would be fired after the game against Florida this weekend? And what if there was somebody that told you that Purdue would pull the upset against Iowa? Maybe I should change my name because I was on this the entire way. I didn't get all my picks right. I'll give it that. But you might as well put it out there right now. Hashtag Zach was right. Because, oh boy, we got a lot to talk about. This is the Monday edition. We're going to start going Mondays now. Wrap up University Week 7. And what do I always say? Hashtag Zach was right. The best college football weeks are the ones that don't look good on paper. This was not a great week on paper. But a lot went down that begins and ends with what was the most shocking upset of the week for anybody except for me because I saw it coming a mile away. Not only did Purdue cover, not only did Purdue win, Purdue beat the everlasting snot out of the Iowa Hawkeyes in Iowa City at Kinnick Stadium. It crushed them 24-7. As a result, Purdue is ranked for the first time since 2007. So congratulations to Jeff Brom and the Boilermakers. And a name that I have been tooting the horn of for a long time is George Karlaftis, the defensive end for Purdue, who's going to be a first-round top 15 pick. He was all over the place. And Iowa's got that offensive line that is ridiculous, one of the best in the nation. And Karlaftis single-handedly tortured his side of the line of scrimmage. David Bell, how about him? One of the most underrated receivers in America. You asked me, Henry, who's going to have the breakout performance? I was not bold enough to say David Bell against that staunch Iowa secondary, but 240 yards, 11 receptions, and a touchdown, an average of 21.8 yards per reception. My goodness. David Bell, have yourself a day. That Iowa secondary, they were really controlling the Hawkeyes in their undefeated season. Spencer Petras is a mediocre quarterback at best. Iowa's receivers, their running backs, they're not great. This is a team carried by a great defense and a great offensive line, and Purdue exposed both of them. It's shocking. I know. It is absolutely stunning to anyone except for me because I looked into my crystal ball. I know this is not a crystal ball. In fact, it's a pack of wipes. But I said Purdue is going to get upset, or Purdue is going to upset Iowa. So there's one that I got very right. One that I got very wrong. And we'll stick with the early games first. Auburn beats Arkansas. And the SEC West has just become volatile. Because I had Arkansas getting the job done at home. I had them covering. Auburn beats them by 2 scores. What is there to make of Auburn? Because we know what Arkansas is. Arkansas is still a program rebuilding. I will continue with this comparison to my dying breath that Bo Nix is the Eli Manning of college football. There are days where he will look incredible, and there will be days where he looks like he needs to be benched. And this was one of those days where he showed up. 21-26, 292 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, as well as 42 yards on the ground and a tutty. KJ Jefferson looked human. And most importantly, Auburn's stout defense looked extremely mortal. 38 points Arkansas' stout defense looked very mortal as they got burnt on these big plays. Tank Bigsby only had 68 yards in the ground. He's great, but a couple long plays really burned the Razorbacks, and they fall at home. They're now 4-3. Auburn is 5-2. So don't sleep on Auburn necessarily in terms of making a New Year's Six game. But it was not all sunny for teams in the SEC, namely the Missouri Tigers, who possess what might be one of the worst rushing defenses in modern-day NFL history. Mizzou is now 0-7 against the spread. So if Mizzou is playing, that is free money, except for maybe next week because they're playing Vandy. But the Texas A&M Aggies went up to Columbia, didn't have the hangover after beating Bama, controlled the pace of play, and won 35-14. There were teams that did have hangovers, though. One of them was Michigan State. I had a feeling that was going to be a close game, but unlike Iowa, Michigan State staved off the upset. They win 20-15, defeating Indiana. The Hoosiers, a rough season after surprising in 2020. You know who else is having a rough season right now? That would be the California Bears. But they did put up a fight against the Oregon Ducks on Friday night. The Ducks defeated them 24-17. Cal goes to 1-5. Oregon just barely sticks around in that top 10 for now, but they did not look convincing. And I think a lot of that falls on Anthony Brown. He's a game manager. But to be an elite team, Oregon needs a better quarterback. And don't worry, Duck fans, he's coming up. A kid by the name of Ty Thompson, 5-star recruit, phenomenal product. He's going to be your guy. But you know who's not LSU's guy? That's Ed Orgeron. And as I look into my crystal ball again, I got half of this prediction right. Zach was partially right. I said that Florida would win the game. I also said Ed Orgeron would get fired after the game. LSU won. They won the game. Zach was partially right. They also have decided to move on from the coach that less than 3 years ago took them to a perfect season and a national championship. And just a lot of stuff behind the scenes for Coach O. It's not surprising. I was basing my prediction of, Coach O's going to go more off of what was going on behind the scenes. And a lot of just stuff regarding PR and saying things he shouldn't be saying and just making comments that were offending people. And look, he's always going to be worshipped at LSU. And Henry's got the clip, so let's roll it.
Bold. Not only do I think Florida defeats LSU, I think we might potentially be seeing Ed Orgeron's last game as the head coach of Louisiana State. I think not only does LSU lose, I think Ed Orgeron could be fired after this week. So give me the Gators on the road in Baton Rouge. Florida, they're not a great team. They're a good enough team to beat an LSU team that has lost literally everybody. LSU has lost 9 offensive starters that were playing week 1. And that's not even getting into losing Derek Stingley. Keyshawn Butte is out for the year, their superstar receiver. LSU is banged up, but they're not a good team either. Coach O is going to be fired, if not this week, soon after.
Boy, I couldn't have gotten one part of that more right than I did get the other side wrong. Florida looked offensively strong. They have no defense. And now, down in Gainesville, the turrets have turned towards Dan Mullen. People think that Dan Mullen could be fired. And it was not a game that you can lose if you're Florida against who is now a lame duck coach. Orgeron is waiting out till the end of the year before he parts ways with LSU. It's a weird situation. So he is not getting immediately fired, whereas he is just getting let go at the end of the season. So he will be coaching Louisiana State through their bowl game before going. And you could start up on your message boards right now if you're a fan of a team that needs to fire their coach. Oh, we want Coach O. Put down in the comments who you think is going to get the LSU job, because that becomes so much more exciting. This is a coaching search offseason like we have never seen before. Several blue bloods are going to have positions open. That's not even getting into Nebraska. Frost is probably going to be gone. I know I've given him praise, but they lost to Minnesota. You don't lose to Minnesota. LSU is going to be open. USC is already open. Miami's going to be open. Florida State might be open. You could go on and on and on. and let's say someone like James Franklin goes off to USC, that opens up Penn State. Let's say Mel Tucker goes to LSU, Michigan State opens up. Let's say that Michigan collapses down the stretch. Who knows? Harbaugh could get canned. I could not tell you, but there is so much going on in this coaching market. This offseason coming up is going to be a roller coaster with the brakes shut off. A wild, wild ride. Speaking of wild rides, how about another pick I was wrong on? Oklahoma State, I call them the most overrated team in America. Ranked number 12, I said they hadn't beaten anybody. Now they've beaten somebody, and that team is a hapless-looking Texas Longhorn squad. Texas they had control of the game for the first half. Bijan Robinson continues to make himself a viable Heisman candidate in a year where nobody's really standing out. But it was a brutal second half. Texas only gained 9 yards in the fourth quarter. Casey Thompson threw 2 terrible picks. And Oklahoma State, they played clean. They forced turnovers. They won the game. They deserved to win the game. And the Cowboys are now 6-0. And now you start looking at Bedlam. And what is Bedlam, you might ask? Well, that's the game between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That's going to be late in the season, last weekend in November. And on to Oklahoma. I did say they're going to have a convincing win over TCU. And even though their defense, which is typically very good, gave up 31 points, that's not the subject. That's not what people are talking about. Caleb Williams is what people thought Spencer Rattler would be. So Williams comes in. It was his first game starting. He did take over and led Oklahoma to the comeback against Texas in the Red River game. 18 for 23, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, a QBR of 96.5. He's the dude. He's the guy. And Spencer Rattler, he has fallen from a potential first overall pick to a guy that's probably going to have to transfer in order to get any sort of draft stock back. It has been that bad. And it's shocking. I've never seen it before. I've never seen where the 2 best quarterbacks in the class coming into the college football season both get so much worse this season. Sam Howell, he does not look good. I cannot tell you who my QB1 is right now. Actually, I take that back. I could. And that is Matt Corral. And Matt Corral had himself a pretty good game. Actually, I take that back. He had himself a very good game. 231 yards. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick through the air, 30 carries, 195 yards through the ground. But Matt Corral was not the story of Ole Miss's 31-26 victory over Tennessee. And that was a blown call at the end of the game. It was a 4th and 24. Tennessee, it was a ball thrown to the tight end. Looked like he had the first. They said he didn't on the field. They went to video review, and those SEC refs, they upheld the call. How did Tennessee fans respond? Well, how about littering the field with trash? Lane Kiffin was hit with a golf ball, beer bottles, water bottles, energy drinks. A bottle of French's mustard was tossed onto the turf at Neyland Stadium. It was a disaster scene of a game, a black eye on Tennessee, on the SEC, on college football. Possibly the worst fan revolt at an American football game since maybe Bottlegate even. And even then, the game was not over after that happened. Tennessee wisely saved their timeouts. They got the ball back, except Hendon Hooker, their quarterback, that's really propelled them to, up until that point, a 4-2 season, was hurt. So in comes Joe Milton, the guy that was benched for Hendon Hooker. And Joe Milton proceeded to, on 4th down, with the game on the line and 4 seconds left on the clock, run out of bounds and forget how much time was on the clock. Yeah, we saw DK Metcalf do it last night, but he managed to get away with it. Joe Milton let the game run out with the ball in his hands. And it was just a wild and wacky and crazy and embarrassing loss for Tennessee, who seemed to have their program on the upswing. This is a brutal, brutal break for the Vols and for their fans who have expected success for the last 20 years. They were born into a blue blood program, and they haven't performed. And this was just the breaking point. But I don't want to go too hard on Tennessee fans because they already went hard on the trash they threw in the field. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go too hard on Alabama either. Alabama benefits greatly from Iowa losing. They got their revenge for the A&M game on Mississippi State, 49-9. Good Lord, is the final from Starkville. So Bama gets the job done. BYU went from top 10 to probably unranked after losing to Baylor 38-24. So the Bears are probably going to go back into the rankings. Cincinnati, with Iowa losing, the Bearcats probably climb the ladder to number 2, defeating UCF 56-21. Are the Bearcats really a chance team? Are the Bearcats capable of winning a national championship? Put it in the comments. I would love to hear your responses, because Cincinnati, this is not your average group of 5 team. I will say it every week until I am blue in the face. You got NFL draft picks all over the field. I can count 3 first and second round guys off the top of my head. Myjai Sanders, a wonderful edge rusher. Sauce Gardner, best name in college football, one of the best cornerbacks in the class. And Desmond Ridder, one of the best QBs in this class of 2022. And they're the real deal. They are 100% the real deal. I don't know who else I have to say it to. They're the real deal. But they are number 2. Who's number 1? And the gap is pretty wide. I did say that Kentucky would score not 1, but 2 touchdowns against Georgia. And Will Levis had himself a game. Unfortunately, it was not enough to defeat the Bulldogs. Georgia wins 30-13. Kentucky, they're still very good. Desmond Ridder has more talent in his pinky than Spencer Rattler does as a whole. I agree with that 100%. Desmond Ridder is awesome, and an NFL team will be very lucky to have him next year. But back to the Georgia game. Georgia is just this dominant, defensively smothering, offensively. They just demoralize you with these amazing, amazing drives. Kentucky, 9.5 did not hit. No, it did not. I picked Georgia winning head-to-head, and I was right about that. You know what did hit, though? How about those Army Black Knights? They did lose. They lost to Wisconsin 20-14. The Badgers were favored by 14. And Army did, in fact, get the job done and cover. So you'll love to see it. Army has a chance to pull a legitimate upset this weekend. And I think they can take down Wake Forest, who is still undefeated this late into the season for, I believe, the first time since World War II. The Demon Deacons are making the trip up to West Point. That would be a fun game to spend the day out on the banks of the Hudson watching that. But what else did I get wrong? Oh, I got Arizona State wrong. The Pac-12 is a mess. ASU blew a 21-7 lead at half against Utah. They lost 35-21. Utah dropped 28 unanswered points on the Sun Devils in the second half. So ASU, they ain't going to be ranked no more. Utah, 4-2. Nice job by Kyle Whittingham keeping the band together. NC State, nice win over Boston College. BC, they definitely miss Phil Dracovic, because Dennis Grossel, good quarterback, he's not going to get the job done in these big spots. NC State, 5-1. And the Wolfpack are making a serious case for New Year's 6. You'll love to see the job that Dave Doran has done in Raleigh. And last but not least, would I take the 21 Bearcats of the Kellen Moore Broncos? Before I get into some next week stuff, the 21 Bearcats are a borderline Big Ten team. They could actually, you know what? I'm going to put that out in the ground right now. Cincinnati is a better team than everybody in the Big Ten. Cincinnati is also the best team in the state of Ohio. Here. Do whatever you want with that information. This Bearcat team is SEC caliber. This Bearcat team went toe-to-toe with Georgia in the Peach Bowl last year. They are every bit as good as the best of the best, minus the Georgia Bulldogs. Cincinnati is that good. I just wish they played better teams. So to look ahead to week number 8, we've already hit week 8. That is crazy. After a week-long hiatus, the weekend starts on Wednesday. And it actually starts with, roll the definition, Wednesday night. Conference USA football. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, 14th in the land, up against, I believe, their biggest rival in Appalachian State. That's a good game. Coastal's only favored by 3.5, so definitely something to watch. How do you feel about football on Wednesday nights? College football on a Wednesday. I don't know how I feel about that, but other than that, This is one of those weeks where there's nothing that really stands out. College game day is going to Oregon UCLA. I don't believe UCLA is ranked. If I could pull the AP poll up, but okay, the new AP poll is up. Did UCLA make it in there? No, they did not. So game day is going to a ranked versus unranked team. This week is that kind of week. But do we have any chances for major upsets? I don't think Ohio State's going to have problems with Indiana. I don't think South Carolina is going to do anything with A&M. Alabama and Tennessee, there could be something there. I don't think there is. LSU Ole Miss will be fun. That's a lot of storylines coming together there with Lane Kiffin after the Tennessee debacle, and now the first game with Orgeron is a lame duck. But it's a very middling weekend, which is why next weekend we are going to spend the show debuting our first ever uniform bracket. Now, shout out to Henry. He put this together in the blink of an eye. First conference we're going to do is the SEC. So I'll get it going this weekend. You can vote in the app what uniforms you like the most, what you like the least, and eventually we're going to pick a winner, and the winner of the SEC is going to go toe-to-toe with the winners of all the other conferences. So I look forward to seeing how that turns out. But I'm going to give out game balls, which is something I have not done yet. Who really surprised the best? Who really made a name for themselves? And I will begin with a tight end that you should probably have on your radar. A freshman at that, Brock Bowers from the University of Georgia, 6'4", 230. He went for 101 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and only 5 receptions against Kentucky. He is a red zone monster. And if Georgia makes the deep run that I'm expecting them to make, expect to hear his name very, very often. Another guy whose name is really worth bringing up, Jerome Ford on Cincinnati, the transfer running back from Alabama. Boy, oh boy, 189 rushing yards on 20 attempts, 4 rushing TDs for Ford against UCF. Jerome Ford, man, what a job that Luke Fickell has done getting these top SEC talents from Alabama or LSU. He has done such a wonderful job. And if anybody thinks that Luke Fickell is going anywhere, mark this one down as well. Luke Fickell is not leaving Cincinnati. Fickell is going nowhere, especially with them becoming a Power 5 school. So take Luke Fickell out of your coaching search stories right now because he's not leaving the Bearcats. He is not leaving that program. Another game ball, I'm going to give it to George Karlaftis of Purdue. You know what? I'm going to give 2 game balls to Purdue. Karlaftis on defense and David Bell, receiver on offense, because they were the catalysts for what might be the biggest upset of the year thus far. Boy, do they both look excellent. David Bell over 220 yards receiving 2 TDs, and George Karlaftis making life absolutely miserable for Spencer Petras and that vaunted Iowa offensive line. And last but not least, I got to give a game ball to a coach. Let me think here. A game ball to a coach. You know what? I'm going to give it to Mike Gundy of Oklahoma State. Do you see him doing the Ted Lasso dance in the postgame? Because Mike Gundy has his Oklahoma State Cowboys at 6-0. And for now, just for now, maybe they could lose next week and it would all be not worth talking about anymore because they're going to a place. They're now ranked number 8 in the land. And they're going to a place where they have suffered a brutal loss in the past. Remember in 2011, they're the number 2 team in the nation. Who did they lose to? They lost to Iowa State in Ames. And Iowa State, even though they haven't lived up to the expectations of being a top 10 team this year, Iowa State's still a very good football team. Oklahoma State could have some problems there. So keep an eye on that. And last but not least, one last game ball. Henry stole my idea. I'm going to roll with it. This game ball is not a football, it is a golf ball, and it belongs to Lane Kiffin. And I'm all aboard the Lane train now. But maybe he leaves Ole Miss to take an LSU job. Maybe he leaves to take USC. He's already been to USC. Maybe Nebraska. I don't know. What I can say is Lane Kiffin has really turned this program at Ole Miss around. I love what he's doing. And I look forward to really seeing the Rebels become a power in the SEC West. So, yes, all aboard the Lane train. Choo choo. Next stop to the New Year's Six. Maybe Atlanta. Maybe if Alabama falls again. I don't know. Any one-loss team in the SEC or the Big Ten, they are not close to being out of the playoffs. And that's why I start looking ahead to week number 10. Not week number... No, it's week 9. Excuse me. Week 10 is a little bit of a nothing burger of a weekend. Week 9, now that we have game times and all that, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Ole Miss, and Auburn. Those are 3 phenomenal games right there. Georgia, Florida. That could also be... No, that's not going to be interesting. Florida's going to get the floor wiped with them. But other than that, enjoy the lull this week unless things go haywire again. Because after this week, the pace is going to pick up. Things are going to start getting crazy. And when things get crazy, there is no better sport than college football. That's why I do this show. That's why I wake up early on Saturdays. College football is my lifeblood. It's what I live and breathe. It's the best sport in the world. Before I go, make sure to download the uSTADIUM app, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on all our socials, and we'll get those picks and takes the take feature up on the app sooner or later. It's going to be amazing. I look forward to using it and getting to interact with y'all because it is so much fun to just get to talk smack and really see what goes through the minds of fans just like you and me. We're all fans at the end of it. So till then, I'll see you this weekend. I can't wait to put the bracket out, and don't throw mustard bottles in the field. It's a bad look.